The journey has been rapid, Roman. Where we are today, we've been on the marketplace for about 8 weeks now, which isn't actually that long. In that time, we've closed over a couple of $100,000 worth of revenue through that channel. And what we're seeing is an engagement and a relationship building with AWS and Microsoft we haven't had before. I feel like what I try and tell people is the more you lean in, the more they lean back with you. And it's becoming more and more obvious the more work we put in and the right people we put in place and the right things we do, the benefits just sort of really started to shine through.
Learn how to master cloud marketplaces in just 5 weeks with our cohort course. Accelerate your growth by tapping into the $300+ billion cloud spend that enterprises have committed to AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Discover the future of go-to-market with Roman. During 10 weekly sessions, you'll learn how to leverage this fast-growing channel and network with top industry experts and partnership leaders. We will dive into marketplace strategies, internal buy-in, building relationships with the cloud, and mastering co-sell. Join our upcoming cohort.
Super excited to learn directly from one of our esteemed course alums.
Great. I'm really happy to be here talking about it, to be honest, Roman.
Let me set the stage a little bit and say that you've been in our course in the beginning of this year, right? I remember distinctly when we were having conversation with you in masterminds, like how to set a strategy for the company and so on. To kick us off, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your company, and things that you've been doing sort of in partnerships and how you came to cloud marketplaces?
The company I work for, Redgate Software, is a database company. So predominantly, we work with database monitoring, development, and deployment. We've been around for about 25 years, and we've got offices around the world. So I mean, it's one of those things. Most people don't think about the database until it's a problem. But people who know databases generally know Redgate Software, and I think we've got about 800,000 users around the world, and about 92% of the Fortune 100 companies use us as well. So we're kind of one of these companies that's massive in the industry, but unless you know databases, a lot of people might not have heard about us. Myself, I've been at Redgate for about 13 years now, and I've worked in a number of sales roles going up through the career from frontline trenches to managing managers. And it's only really in the last 18 months or so that I actually took a transition into managing partnerships and alliances. And part of that is partners. Partners is a big thing, as you know, Roman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everything from channel through to the hyperscalers and everything in between. So it was really interesting, kind of looking at it from almost a 60,000 foot view and thinking, where do I spend my time coming into this?
Right.
Which led me eventually to obviously speaking to you guys.
Appreciate your trust in us, and we were delighted to have you in our course and now in the community. So tell us a little bit more, like how you thought about your marketplace strategy in the context of your sort of partnership strategy.
I guess one of the things that came across to me quite early on was the cloud marketplaces seem to be a very interesting thing for me, and the reason it's so interesting for me is that the cloud marketplaces are effectively an extension of the hyperscalers. So, AWS and Microsoft and Google Cloud, they are companies that effectively provide databases and services around that. And we are a database company that provides tools and solutions to help people on those in those challenges day to day. So there's definitely this sort of real ICP crossover with ideal customer profile crossover. We're selling to the same people that these hyperscalers are. But also anecdotally, as I said, I was a sales manager, and I'd hear questions sort of filter through every now and then from someone asking, "Are we available on the marketplace?" But it was only ever in sort of dribs and drabs. I never really sort of, I never really understood, never really saw it as a big thing. But as I started to kind of peel back the layers a little bit, it seemed like a really obvious place for us to actually start spending some time.
Right.
And also, I guess added to that as well, I mean, what technology company out there doesn't want a better relationship with these companies? Like the AWSs and Microsofts and GCPs. And I think there's been a real shift, and I think it's accelerating in the sense of these cloud marketplaces, they are supporting the partners that support them. And it seems like a really, really good and obvious way for us to build better relationships with them as well. So
yeah,
there's a twofold thing to it, I think.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for sharing. But I think what is typically happening is that we've been discussing it with you sort of in masterminds and with many others through our courses. There's a realization that there's a big opportunity, right? But then there's a question is how and what is how to do it, how to get on board, how to get traction, what is the strategy that should be employed by the company. Can you talk a little bit more of your journey to the strategy, how you what helped you to develop it? What are the things that maybe kind of you learned from others through our course or elsewhere that led you eventually to succeed? And maybe before we do all of that, let's fast forward to sort of when you started. Let's fast forward to right now. Tell us a little bit more like where you are, what sort of you achieved so far, and in which time period.
That's a great question because, as we've discussed over the last few weeks, so the journey has been rapid, Roman. So I mean, where we are today, we've been on the marketplace for about 8 weeks now, which isn't actually that long. In that time, we've closed over a couple of $100,000 worth of revenue through that channel, and what we're seeing is an engagement and a relationship building with AWS and Microsoft we haven't had before. I feel like what I try and tell people is the more you lean in, the more they lean back with you, and it's becoming more and more obvious. The more work we put in, and the right people we put in place, and the right things we do, the benefits just sort of really started to shine through. So, someone sort of warned me initially, like, look, it takes time. Don't expect any sort of co-sales to happen in the first 12 to 18 months, maybe even 2 years. And maybe, set your expectations at around $200,000 worth of revenue in your first year as being good. So to be, not even 2 months fully into this, we've had co-sales and referrals come back already. We've also seen, as I said, over $200,000 worth of revenue passing through that channel, and I feel like we're only just touching the tip of the iceberg at the moment. And I think, for me, going back further, so 8 weeks ago we launched. The previous sort of 6 weeks before that, we were just starting. We were just kind of going into this. Okay, we've got the green light. How do we now do this thing? How do we get onto the marketplace? And we actually used a company, a third party. I don't know if I can talk about who they are on here, but we used this third party company to help us, and that really accelerated the journey because there's not many people who have done this before. It's still such a new thing that to understand what you need to do, what the hurdles are, all the hyperscalers and the marketplaces are slightly different and have their own pitfalls and nuances. That really helped us kind of tackle it.
The traction that you shared is been fantastic, right? And congrats on that. And I think basically there's two schools of thoughts. One of them talking about marketplaces. One of them is saying, hey, don't expect too many results in the beginning. But I think we also have great speakers in our course who teach how to get quick traction, right? And I think those guys actually have done a lot of stuff at more or less rapid manner. But I think finding your footing is non-trivial, and you've done it, and congrats on that. So let's go back to the strategy question. Kind of what helped you to get sort of going?
In no uncertain terms, it was the community. The first thing I did when I set out to do the cloud marketplaces was I started talking to people, and again, not many people have done this before. So finding the scale of people to kind of help you is quite challenging in itself. And I think that's one of the things I really enjoyed about the course, the Partner Insights course, is there was a whole community of people already baked there, experts in this field, and to understand. You've got this goal, you want to get to this thing at the end, but what you tend to do is a bit like with sales. You have happy years, you think you can get there on your own, and you think, oh, that sounds easy, but no one really tells you about the challenges you're going to come across. And that's where the course came in really handy. What do you need to understand? Who do you need to bring along? What do the cloud hyperscalers care about that's going to differentiate you from the hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are also trying to do the same thing and also trying to get their attention as well? And I think having the experts who have literally made their job around this help you guide through that process, like act like Sherpas, is is the most critical thing I could say to anyone, because you cannot understand what you're going to get into. And I think to go it alone, I would still be floundering in the mud. I would still be struggling to get off of step one. But more importantly, I think probably my mental health would have been in the toilet as well, because it's a challenge, and having other people sort of support you through that process, again, really important.
You're absolutely right, because I think a lot of people, even like very experienced alliance leaders who've been in our course and community, are talking about this fact that kind of going through this kind of journey and learning from others give you a lot of signal that you are maybe doing right things, and here's the sort of tweaks that you need to be doing, but also here's like what others are doing, so you can put it in sort of perspective. But I'm sort of very curious about your own sort of transformation of your strategy, like to the extent you sort of can share. Can we sort of peel back a little bit and say like what how your kind of understanding of cloud marketplaces changed over the last, let's say, half a year, right? Since you've been kind of actively doubling down on this. What are the sort of insights that you got that you maybe would be open to share with others, and to sort of what are the things that you maybe learned from others that sort of validated your sort of own journey?
I think one of the really key things I learned was understand exactly what you're doing and what you're asking for. Have a solid business case. So I think I shared this on the course, but I actually approached my board and exec with the proposal to go on the cloud marketplaces somewhere around a year ago. And I kind of went into the meeting with this gut feel. This is what we should be doing. I've heard it anecdotally from customers. There is this shiny thing where people are spending money there, and I think we can make something from it. But it wasn't a very watertight case. In fact, actually, it was much more bullish until I got close to the day when I was actually presenting, and I actually felt like, no, maybe I'm overstating some of these facts here. I think I'd used it was like a Forrester guide, and there was some data on there that was kind of looked quite appealing, and I tried to plug some numbers in, but I didn't really have the full context of it. So inevitably, I went in, I pitched this thing, and it was shot down. And I think one of the things that people don't realize is when you're trying to present an idea to the board or exec, even if you've got something that you say you're going to make, I don't know, 10, 20, $30 million from, and all it's going to cost you is $2 million, usually in these sort of scenarios, there's several, if not dozens, of other people who are also going into the exec with a similar ask of just give me a couple of million and I'll turn it into 10x that. So you're competing internally against other people and other projects. So it's really, really important. And I was very lucky to get a second shot at this. A lot of people will get one shot and they move on. But if you're going to go in with the data and the facts as best you can. And the only way I think you can really do that is understanding what other people have done before you. So again, it's that scale thing. And I kind of refer to this a lot here, but when you're in sales, there's lots of salespeople to talk to and lean on and get expertise from them. There's very few partner people, especially in an organization. Mostly you have to go outside of that. So that's a big thing, but financials as well is really important. So I think it was a session with John Kinsett, and he talked about this financial model that he'd built, and it basically gave you sort of all the data points that are talked about in the marketplace from the Foresters and Analysis and everyone else out there. It put it in this really nice sort of spreadsheet, and it gave me a really good starting point to build this business case around the financial benefits of us being on the marketplace, because we've traditionally been very successful with direct sales, and people would just come to us and buy from us. Why do we need to do this other thing? We're not losing anything. But actually understanding the multipliers, the force multipliers in there, by putting more money through, get more notice. By getting more notice, they're more interested in reselling your stuff and helping you with co-selling it. And that's when you start to get the reciprocity coming from from the cloud marketplaces as well. So again, I guess the point I'm trying to make is understand exactly what it is you expect the outcome to be from doing this. And the only way to do that in a very, very small sort of data point that you have, if you're not doing this already, is to talk to other people who've done it and hear what their wins were and hear where they failed as well. Like no one ever likes to talk about where they fail, but that's a really important thing to understand to avoid those pitfalls.
I think you're absolutely right. I remember the session because I'm sort of teaching this part about business case, but showing like a variance, different scenarios that we can expect, right? And this is what typically company are getting, and also talking about pitfalls and risks, and I think reasonable expectations are super important. And if you go to management meeting, a sort of board meeting with this type of um, materials, it will give you much more credibility and confidence. I'm curious, like, and we will talk like in a second about hyperscalers, but I'm curious, up to you, you get some initial success, how your understanding of partnerships, alliances is changing in sort of organization, maybe like how sales are reacting. I'm curious, like, did you see any sort of like initial like leaps in terms of how people start to think about this motion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of describe this as a triathlon at this point. I think when you're kind of going to get on the marketplace, it's quite a big challenge. But when you get there, that's the next challenge. It's a bit like getting out from the swim and realizing, okay, now I've got to do a bike ride. And that challenge is actually getting the sales motion on side and getting salespeople to sort of understand what it means to be on the marketplace. So I think it's always met initially with a bit of skepticism, because is it going to slow down my deal is probably one of the first questions that comes up. Or how does it benefit me, or what's it going to cost in terms of margins or opportunity? And I think my approach has been sort of fairly sort of slow. So what we did internally was we said, okay, right, we've got some salespeople who are probably going to adapt to this quite quickly, and they're going to see the benefits very quickly. So we were very fortunate. We got propensity data. So this provider we used gave us propensity data, which showed us our entire uh, customer estate and who out of those had a high likelihood to buy through one of the marketplaces. And that gave us a really good sort of warm lead to start with. So let's go to some of these sort of high propensity buyers, and let's start not with the biggest ones, but ones that they're not small either. So sort of a mid-sized deal of about 30K for us. And let's see if they're coming up for a purchase or they're going through a purchase motion at the moment. Let's just ask the question: do you like to buy through a marketplace? If so, which one? And what we found was the reception to just asking that question was very positive. So we already knew they were likely to buy through it, but it was very quick for them to come back and say, "Oh, actually, yes, that would be actually very handy, because I don't have to go through all these budget proposals, or go and sort of put another business case together for an unbudgeted spend," which is a common one. So very early on, we saw very quick movement through this sort of procurement stage, which was inevitably, it's always quite a slow thing, especially over the last 2 years. I don't think in this industry we've ever had so much scrutiny on budgets around IT spend, even though they've never been bigger. Every dollar spent has to be justified. Whereas what we found instantly was, a lot of the times with the cloud marketplaces, there was already a pre-approved budget. It had already been asked for. So it took away a friction point very quickly. So as soon as we had a couple of wins, what we did then was we knew instantly we had to do win wires. So we had to shout about the wins, no matter how small they were. Every single little milestone was something we were trying to tell the rest of the company about as loudly as we could. And we've seen then progressively more people coming to ask us as the partnership team, how do I help? How do I ask this of my customer? Please, can you help me sort of navigate this deal? And I think that's the kind of the proof point that we were looking for initially was, people be receptive to this, and could we get them coming to us?
super insightful case study in terms of like how to do it, and I think this is exactly how companies should do it. Basically, I focus on people who already think that could be like a big help with all marketplaces, sellers, and then work with them, and then the word spreads, and then win wires and kind of initial wins, and then I think Brian in our course is teaching this fact that he like initial team that wanted to work with him. I mean, there was sort of two teams. One of them didn't want to work with him, right? And then they were actually chasing him after that, and he's saying like, no, but I just like I don't have capacity now. Sorry. So, but yeah, that is fantastic. Congrats on that. I think a couple of things that I wanted to ask you. You mentioned hyperscalers and that they've been very helpful, and I'm curious, like when you go into all these marketplaces, you kind of think that this all huge hyperscalers like big and scary. What was sort of your learning about like how they operate? What kind of things that you didn't expect maybe, or like maybe you would also comment on that the fact that you are database and they also have databases. There's some potential competition going on. How you thought about that? Because some companies are kind of a little bit concerned that of going to marketplaces because of competition. So
there's a really interesting sort of case study for us. So one of our primary solutions is a monitoring tool, and it monitors databases, and all hyperscalers have some sort of monitoring capabilities within their tools as native. So they want you to be able to see what's going on. They want you to be able to optimize your processes and keep your uptime there. So people started to ask me, well, do we not compete with their own product, their own native thing? But the reality is, a lot of these solutions they have them because they need them. They want partners to actually sell their solutions, because one, if you're going through the marketplace and you're co-selling with them, they actually get they get remunerated on that. It's a quota retiring procurement for them. So they actually probably get more benefit from selling our tools than actually pushing people towards their own in that respect. I mean, I say selling. I wouldn't say they sell our tools, but they certainly help us navigate around these things.
yeah, exactly.
Maybe they will. Maybe that's the next step for us, is they're introducing us into more people. But for the moment, we're not competing with them. We're providing a value-added service on top of what they've already got as native. So I don't think it's as much of a challenge as people might expect in terms of. I mean, I spoke to a number of people recently at an event, and they had a similar scenario where it's like, but our tools compete with theirs, and it's like you kind of have to leave that at the door. I think AWS actually say this quite a lot. They're customer obsessed. They want the customers to have the best tools out there. They want them to have the best experiences, and same with Microsoft. No one wants you to have a bad experience using their tool. So if they think that your tool is better than theirs, they will say it to the customer, because ultimately the credibility is in the line. So yeah, I definitely don't think it's anything anyone should worry about.
Really, but talking about other things that you found kind of interesting of working with them, sort of like getting from initial listing to getting a kind of initial like number of deals, like what are the things that you found kind of that you would advise yourself half a year ago to think differently?
I think one thing people have got to remember is, when you're going out into this marketplace journey, I mean, it's AWS and Microsoft and GCP, they're dealing with probably thousands of people who are looking to do this thing. It's a bit like when you go to buy a car, there's a lot of people who want to buy that car. They might not be able to afford it. They might not have the resources to get it. So they have to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, for want of a better way of putting it. They have to determine who's actually really serious and who's actually going to move forward with this, and where should they invest their time. Because I think the initial sort of partner managers you'll get, they're probably dealing with, hundreds, if not thousands, of potential ISVs that they're working with. So you have to stand out from the crowd in that sense. And I think the best way to do that is to actually understand what is driving them. What is their goal for you as an ISV, or what is their endpoint for you before they can move you to the next tier of partner manager. What are the goals that we need to achieve to hit certain thresholds or programs, whether it's the ISV success with Microsoft or ISV accelerate with AWS or the GCP equivalent. There's always some sort of milestone they're looking for you to hit. So if you can understand that early on, then it gives you a very clear, measurable outcome or goal to get the outcomes to. So for us, it was like, okay, we need to get a product that is approved onto the site. We need to list a certain number of registrations. We need to sort of hit these goals. So how do we hit them? What do I need to do that? Do I need to employ someone else into my team? How do I scale this thing when I start doing that? So yeah, the long story short, understand what your goal is or what their goals are and align them as best as possible and put all your effort into doing that.
What you're talking about, this should be a strategy, right? You need to understand that you're going through the funnel that sort of exists in these cloud providers, and then you need to stand out from others. And one of the ways to do that is kind of deploy a very thoughtful strategic approach of like going sort of step by step. You want to get to the highest partner designation that you can in the shortest period of time that you can, and kind of doing a bunch of other things. But yeah, look, I guess that's been fantastic, and congrats on all your success. You mentioned that your pipeline is also sort of order of magnitude now larger than you already closed. But I'm sort of curious, what is the next big thing that you kind of setting for yourself, or all sort of goals that you're setting for yourself in marketplace?
So initially, when I set out to do this, I put again, we had this sort of expectation that look, 200,000 in the first year is what you should be happy to get to. So
you already have done it, right?
We've already done it. I sort of set myself this big goal of, well, I think we can do 2 million. I think we can do 2 million in year one, and then I want to do 5 million in year two. But even just in the pipeline we're uncovering at the moment, we just logged our first, just into the pipeline, but we've got a $7 million deal in the pipeline now, which will be one of the largest deals we've done. And that's come off the back of actually being on the marketplace, in the sense of, we were already aware, they were already aware of us as a business, but they actually approached us and said, "Oh, we see you're on the marketplace. This is actually quite good for us. We'd be interested in having a conversation." So, if this deal closes, and I really hope it does, that would blow my first 2 years out of the water instantly. And again, expectation setting. This is kind of exceptional stuff happening. I wouldn't say anyone who's going to go on the marketplace just expect to be sort of having $1 million deals landing in their lap, left, right, center. But again, I think the point comes back to, if you lean into it and you actually start to really kind of find sweet spots and what's the things that people are looking for, and how can we work within that, I really feel like the sky is the limit out there at the moment.
Amazing. So like, just like a startup, how we think about startups, they like triple, double sort of year-over-year sort of growth. But yeah, I guess look, I'm sort of really delighted to see that the success that you able to achieve in this short period of time, and I think you validated many things that we've been teaching in our course, and happy to have you in our community, and appreciate you sharing all this sort of insights. Look forward to working more with you on all other things about scaling and partners and things that we kind of cooking on sort of our side. But yeah, thanks so much.
It's been an exciting journey. I'm looking forward to doing more with you as well, Roman. Thank you so much, for bringing me into this rabbit hole that is cloud marketplaces. It's it's been magical.
Learn how to master cloud marketplaces in just 5 weeks with our cohort course. Accelerate your growth by tapping into the $300+ billion cloud spend that enterprises have committed to AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Discover the future of go-to-market with Roman. During 10 weekly sessions, you'll learn how to leverage this fast-growing channel and network with top industry experts and partnership leaders. We will dive into marketplace strategies, internal buy-in, building relationships with the cloud, and mastering co-sell. Join our upcoming cohort